Everybody in this room is familiar with the concepts of digital transformation, the principles behind digital disruption. We're all aware of that. The question is, what are we building? What comes next? My conviction is that we're starting to build a society where the rules aren't written in a law book, but they're defined in software. They're written in software, and I think that this group is going to play a principal role in defining those laws. I'm borrowing a concept from network technology, this concept of a software-defined network or software-defined storage or software-defined radio. I think soon we're going to live in a software-defined society, a society where the rules are flexible, responsive, and dynamic. But what's most extraordinary about this transformation that we're going through is that we can't see it. In many ways, it's an invisible transformation. We talk about it, we hear about it, we read about it, but we can't see it. If you don't live in Silicon Valley or one of the other big innovation centers, if you're in another part of the country, often the only sign that you see of digital transformation is a sign on a familiar store that says, "Going out of business, everything must go." In the first 4 months of this year, 9 major retail chains have closed their doors for good. More jobs have been lost in retail than all the jobs in the coal industry that we've heard so much about recently in politics, those coal jobs that we're trying to protect. But the retail jobs that disappeared, well, they're distributed across the country. They're dispersed, so there's no concentrated place. There's no one state. There's no one constituency for those missing jobs. Every time a familiar chain goes out of business, it reminds us that we've given up a habit. We've shed a habit that we grew up with. For instance, when Blockbuster went out of business a few years ago, it reminded us that we no longer collect DVDs. We no longer borrow DVDs. We don't really have DVD players anymore. A DVD is something you find at a yard sale. And by extension, we don't really use payphones anymore. We don't use phone books. We don't use fax machines. We don't go visit a travel agent. We've shed so many habits in the last 10 years, and those things just disappear into the memory hole. They disappear into obscurity. Now, what some people call this process is digital dematerialization, dematerialization into software, dematerialization into pure information. The term I like to use is a little more vivid, vaporized. Vaporized, like a magic trick. Now you see it, now you don't. Suddenly something is gone in a puff of smoke. That might sound a little bit fanciful, but you know, every time you use your smartphone, you're vaporizing something. Every single time. Think about it. Amazon now sells more ebooks than hardback and paperback books combined. We've vaporized books. The music industry has gone through this massive transformation. Streaming media services, streaming music services now account for more revenue than all other forms of revenue combined for the music industry. Maps. Remember maps? Remember just 10 years ago when you went on a trip, you had to get a map. I got a note from the AAA just a week ago. I got mail from the AAA reminding me to renew my membership, and one of the membership benefits is that you can get a map made, a custom triptych made. I thought, who needs this service anymore? Our smartphones come with such better maps built into the phone, and if you don't like the map app that's built into your phone, with the touch of an icon, you can download another one or replace it. So we've vaporized the map business. The games industry has been transformed. I brought the first mobile games to the United States in 2001 and 2002, and back then the biggest single marketing problem we had was explaining to customers where the game actually was when they bought it. People couldn't understand. It's like, wait, I touch something on my phone and then magically a game appears. Where is it? I didn't connect a cable, I didn't buy a disc. People had this habit of buying physical media in order to consume it. That's gone for good. And it's not just a novel distribution technique. We've totally revised the way the game industry works with mobile games. Because today, when you get a mobile game on your phone, typically you're not going to pay for it. It's free. The customer decides when they want to pay. That's a radical change to the way games are made and ways sold. And so we've actually transformed not just the distribution, but also the business model and therefore the design of the games. And something similar is happening in the TV industry. My friends and former colleagues in the TV industry hate it when I say this, but TV is being vaporized right now. The $500 billion television industry is going through a massive transformation. More than half the households in the United States now subscribe to Netflix. And we also subscribe to a number of other digital streaming video services. It's not a phenomenon that's limited to the United States. This is going on around the world. You see, today, if you're going to be in the video business, you no longer need to put a satellite up in space. You don't need to buy a television station with a big tower and spectrum that you own exclusively. Anyone can launch a video service in a matter of days. A cloud-based streaming video service can be launched so quickly. And that's why we're seeing thousands of video-on-demand services being launched around the world. So when I say we're vaporizing things, the point I'm making is that we're replacing physical stuff with invisible software, with digital information that can be downloaded at the touch of an icon. And it's not limited to maps or music or media, the things that I know so well from my career. This is actually happening to hardware. In the past 10 years, your smartphone has absorbed the functionality of about 24 consumer electronics devices. And for the companies that manufacture devices, like GPS units and MP3 players and digital cameras, they've experienced double-digit decreases in the sales of those physical products as the smartphone has absorbed all that functionality. And in the meantime, the sale of the smartphone is up by more than 500% in the last 10 years. So my belief is that whatever can be vaporized will be vaporized. Whatever can be replaced by pure information, by invisible software, will be replaced, whether you choose to do it to your business or whether someone does it to you. Now, I want to be really clear. What I'm not saying is that everything's going to be vaporized. That's not my message. Of course, we still need clothes and shoes and food and places to live and so on. But the way we access those things is definitely changing. Take a look at what's happening in retail. Let me return to the retail example for just a second, because retail is actually in the process of being vaporized. Now, it's no secret that the big retailers are doing everything they can to bring digital technology into the store, to reinvent the retail experience. And the thing I find so interesting is when I look at a retail shop, I'm always looking for the things that are disappearing. Have you noticed the cash registers are starting to disappear? Whenever you go to a big box store now, you'll notice, for instance, if you go to Home Depot, you'll notice where they used to have a dozen checkout tellers or checkout counters, now it's all self-service checkout. And that's happening in chains across the country. So we're vaporizing the cash register, we're vaporizing that retail clerk. Amazon took a look at this, and as you know, Amazon's putting tremendous pressure on retailers to reinvent themselves. Amazon decided to get into the physical retail business. And they asked customers what they dislike about going to stores. And the number one thing customers said is they hate standing in line. They hate that checkout line. So Amazon took this idea and pushed it one step further. With their new Amazon Go stores, they made it possible for customers to simply walk into a store, pick up something off the shelf that they like, and walk out. Just walk out. That's how they're marketing the store. No cash register, no payment, no point of purchase. But in a way, Amazon's a little late to the game because things like Square have actually made it possible for us to make any place a point of sale, any place. A merchant can conduct business, even in a car, in a taxi. There's a phrase they used to use when the trains, the railroads were introduced in 1830. The phrase they used was annihilating time and space. This idea of collapsing the constraints of time and space has been with us since the railroad, since the introduction of the telegraph, since the introduction of the telephone. But in retail today, I think Square is really living up to this promise of annihilating time and space, shedding the constraints of time and space in retail. And the best and most vivid example of vaporizing retail comes to us from South Korea, where a store called Home Plus decided to bring the store to where the customers are. What you're looking at in this photograph is not a retail shop. It's a subway station in Seoul. The gentleman in the middle of the photo is getting on a train. The young man in the foreground is shopping with his phone. What Home Plus did was they took life-size photographs of the products in the stores and they put them on the walls of the subway station so that while people are waiting for their train, they're not wasting time, they can be efficient, they can purchase, they can shop. And when they arrive at their destination, there'll be somebody there with shopping bags to greet them. This experiment was so successful in Seoul that the parent company, Tesco, decided to try it in the UK. What you're looking at here is not a retail shop in the UK. This is the Waterloo train station in central London. And again, Tesco took life-size photographs and they wrapped the columns, and you can see the woman in the foreground is actually shopping. She's scanning a barcode, and when she arrives at her destination, there'll be someone with shopping bags to greet her. We are literally vaporizing the retail store. I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, where is it going to stop? Is this guy going to just talk about vaporizing stuff all day long? I have news for you. It won't stop. This process will not stop until every single thing that can be vaporized and turned into software will be. 3 years ago, Phil Schiller from Apple announced at the Worldwide Developer Conference that there were 1.3 million apps in the Apple App Store. Today, that figure stands at 2.6 million, and by 2020, there'll be 5 million apps in the App Store. 5 million apps. Now think about that for a second. That's 5 million things that used to be made in a factory and put in a box, put on a pallet, stuck in a container, put on a ship, taken to a port, put on a truck, taken to a logistics center, then they would find their way to a retail shelf near you. All of that is being vaporized. It's not just the 5 million products, it's the entire supply chain that is being replaced by software. These new digital services never exist in the physical domain. They exist purely in software. That's the size and scale of this invisible transformation. And when we do this, when we vaporize something, it gives us an opportunity to completely reinvent what that product used to stand for.